The probability of surviving a T-bone collision at 70 miles per hour in a standard SUV is less than 8%. When that impact happens on a surface street like Flower in downtown Los Angeles, the physics get even uglier. You have concrete barriers, steel light poles, and zero runoff room. On May 8th, just last week, a stolen Model S entered that intersection. It had been clocked doing 90 on the 110 freeway before it exited. Sarah was 46. She was a creative director for a firm 3 blocks away. She had a daughter named Chloe and a calendar full of Q3 deliverables. The police report notes there were no skid marks from the Tesla. The driver never even touched the brakes. The impact was so clean, it sheared the frame of Sarah's vehicle. It wasn't just a car accident. It was a total structural failure of everything she knew. When the paramedics arrived, they found a smell that shouldn't have been there. It wasn't just gasoline and burnt rubber. It was a sharp, biting scent, the smell of ozone from the Tesla's ruptured battery cells. It was thick, metallic, like the air right before a massive storm hits the basin. The city didn't look like Los Angeles anymore. I was looking down, but the buildings, the steel and the glass, they were just shapes. They weren't solid. They looked like wireframes. You know, when you're looking at a mock-up for a website and it's just the bones? It was like that. But there was color. Not the neon of the billboards or the red of the brake lights on the 110. It was a heat map. I'm looking at the streets and I see people, but they aren't people. They're pulses. Each one has a different frequency. Some of them were bright, like a high wattage bulb. Others were dim, barely a flicker. I remember thinking about the metrics we use at the office. We talk about engagement and reach. This was the real reach. I could see the whole grid, thousands of these pulses. They were all connected by these thin, vibrating lines. It looked like a massive network, a map of every intent in the city. I wasn't scared. I didn't have enough weight to be scared. I felt light. My head felt clear. It was like someone had finally turned off all the background noise in my office. The fans, the chatter, the phones, all of it. Just this one low hum remained. Look, I have to go back. I have to tell you how I got there. It was 8:15 in the morning. I was on Flower Street. I just finished a call with a client about a rebranding project. I had my coffee in the center console. It was a latte from the place near Grand Central Market. I remember the smell of the espresso. I remember the way the sun was hitting the glass of the US Bank Tower. It was a Tuesday. It felt like every other Tuesday. I was thinking about Chloe. She had a soccer game that evening. I was trying to figure out if I could leave the office by 5. I was checking the clock on the dash. Then the light turned green. I didn't see the Tesla. I didn't hear a horn. There was just this sudden, violent shift in the air. The smell of ozone. That's the last thing I remember of the physical world. That sharp, electric smell, like a circuit board burning out. Then the silence. It wasn't just quiet. It was an absence. My body, I couldn't feel my hands on the wheel. I couldn't feel the seat against my back. I was just there in the middle of the air. I looked at my SUV. It was down there on Flower. It looked like a crushed soda can. The metal was peeled back. I saw the coffee cup. It was on the pavement. The white foam was mixing with the glass shards. It looked strange, so small. That's when I heard the hum. It wasn't a sound. It was more like a vibration in my teeth. But I didn't have teeth. It was a signal. It was coming from everywhere. I turned, or I thought about turning, and he was there. He didn't have a face like the paintings in the lobby of my grandmother's church. He wasn't a man in a robe. He was the source. That's the only way I can say it. He was the primary source, the center of every signal on the heat map. The light coming off him wasn't white. It was every color and no color. It was the original brand, the thing everything else is trying to copy. Sarah, he said. It didn't come through my ears. It arrived in my center. It was like a direct download. You're looking at the noise, he told me. I looked back at the heat map of the city. I saw the pulses again. I saw how many of them were struggling. Why is it so messy? I asked. I felt my shoulders drop. I didn't know I'd been holding them up. I'd been holding them up for 20 years. The signal is always there, he said. But the world is loud. People build their own walls. They create their own static. I watched a pulse near a bus stop. It was very dim. It was surrounded by a gray fog. Is that a choice? I asked. I felt a sting in my eyes. I reached up to wipe them, but my hand wasn't there. I just felt the wetness on the space where my face used to be. Sometimes, he said, and sometimes it's just the weight of the day. But the messengers are always working. Look closer. I looked at the bus stop again. Next to the dim pulse, there was something else. It wasn't a pulse. It was a steady, unmoving glow. It was tall. It didn't vibrate like the humans did. It was stable. That's one of mine, he said. I watched the tall glow put a hand, or the suggestion of a hand, on the shoulder of the dim pulse. The dim pulse didn't turn around. It didn't see anything. But for a second, the vibration slowed down. The gray fog thinned out just a little bit. He doesn't know, I said. He doesn't have to know to receive it, he answered. I thought about my office. I thought about the boardrooms. All those people in suits, talking about influence, talking about how to get people to look at things. We're so bad at this, I said. I felt a laugh start in my chest. It felt brittle, like glass breaking. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the sound of realizing I'd been spent my whole life designing billboards for things that didn't exist. You're learning the hierarchy, he said. He moved closer. The hum got louder. It wasn't painful, but it was intense. It was like standing next to a massive speaker at a concert. You can feel the air moving in your lungs. I have to go back to Chloe, I said. The thought of her hit me like a physical blow. I saw her in her soccer uniform. I saw the way she ties her cleats. Left one first, then the right, always twice. I know, he said, but look at the 110. Look at the interchange. I looked toward the freeway. It was a mess of light. Thousands of cars, thousands of pulses. But above it, there was a different layer. I saw these figures. They were moving through the traffic. They weren't hindered by the cars. They were weaving in and out of the metal. They're managing the flow, he explained. I saw an angel. I guess that's the word, but it feels too small, standing in the middle of a lane. A truck was barreling toward a small sedan. The driver of the sedan was looking at his phone. I could see the static around him. The figure reached out. It didn't push the car. It just nudged the intent. The driver suddenly looked up. He gripped the wheel. He swerved. The truck missed him by an inch. You call it a close call, he said. We call it a successful intervention. Does it always work? I asked. I thought about my car on Flower Street. I thought about the Tesla. He didn't answer right away. The hum shifted. It became lower, heavier. There is a timing for everything, Sarah. A window. Some things are allowed so that other things can begin. I didn't like that. I felt my jaw tighten. I wanted a better answer. I wanted a spreadsheet. I wanted a reason why my SUV was a pile of scrap metal and my daughter was going to be waiting at a soccer field for a mother who wasn't coming. That's not fair, I said. Fair is a human metric, he said. The hum intensified. The heat map of the city began to blur. It was like looking at a photo that's being overexposed. The lights were getting too bright. I tried to reach for the 1 in 10. I tried to reach for the bus stop. I wanted to stay in the signal. I didn't want to go back to the static. But the ozone smell was coming back. It was cutting through the hum, sharp, burning, acetic. I could feel the weight returning to my feet. It felt like lead. It felt like being dragged through a narrow pipe. I closed my eyes, or I thought I did. The last thing I saw was the heat map. All those people, all those connections, and the hum. I can still feel it, even now sitting here. If I get too quiet, if the room is empty, I can feel the 110, not the cars, not the tires on the asphalt. I can feel the vibration of the figures moving through the lanes. It's right there, behind the wall of the hospital room. I put my hand on the bed rail. It's cold, it's solid, it's supposed to be real. But I can feel the hum through the metal. It's not stopping. I need to tell you about the boardroom. This didn't happen in the crash. It happened while I was with him, but it was a memory. Or maybe I was actually there, I don't know. In that place, time doesn't have a sequence. It's like looking at a storyboard where every frame is happening at once. We were in a high-rise Onker Hill 52nd floor. I knew this room. I'd sat in that exact ergohuman chair 3 weeks before the Tesla hit me. I remember the smell of the room. Expensive leather and that filtered, sterile air you only get in buildings where the windows don't open. I saw my boss, Marcus. He was leaning over a glass table, pointing at a deck I designed. He was talking about brand equity. He was talking about how we needed to capture the emotional landscape of the consumer. I looked at him, and for the first time, I saw the visual hierarchy of the room. And it wasn't the CEO at the head of the table. Standing behind Marcus was a figure. It wasn't glowing in a way that made it hard to look at. It was just high output. It was a stable frequency. It made Marcus look like a faded photocopy. The figure had its hand on Marcus's shoulder. Marcus didn't feel it. He just kept talking about the Q3 rollout. But every time the figure's hand moved, Marcus would pause. He'd take a breath. He'd soften his tone just for a second. He thinks he's the one coming up with the pivot, Jesus said. His voice was right there in my head. It was clearer than Marcus's voice. Marcus sounded like he was underwater. He's not? I asked. I felt my heart, or whatever was left of my heart, start to race. I'd spent 6 months on that strategy. I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. for 3 weeks straight. He's hearing the signal, Jesus said. He calls it a gut feeling. He calls it market intuition, but it's just the frequency he's allowing in. So my work, it didn't matter, I asked. I felt a lump in my throat. It felt like I was being told my entire portfolio was a fraud. Everything I'd built, my whole career. Your work was the vessel, but the content, the thing that actually moves people, that comes from a different source. I watched the figure behind Marcus. It wasn't looking at the deck. It was looking at Marcus's chest. It was watching the way his pulse, that little light in his center, was flickering. Then the scene shifted. We weren't on Bunker Hill anymore. We were on the corner of 5th and San Pedro, Skid Row. The smell hit me first. It wasn't ozone this time. It was old sweat, urine, and that heavy, sweet smell of rotting trash. It was the unbranded part of the city. No billboards, just gray tents and broken glass. I saw a woman sitting on a plastic crate. She was wearing a coat that was 3 sizes too big. She was talking to herself, but then I saw the heat map. Her pulse, the light in her center, it was blinding. It was stronger than the CEO's light. It was a deep, resonant gold. It was vibrating so fast it was almost humming. Look at her assets, Jesus said. I looked. Behind her, there were 3 of those tall, stable figures. 3. Marcus only had 1. These figures weren't just standing there. They were braced, like they were guarding a vault. Why does she have more? I asked. I felt my breath hitch. I couldn't understand the ROI here. Marcus was influential. He managed 100 people. This woman she was nothing to the city. She didn't even have an ID. The world sees the packaging, he said. We see the output. He moved closer to the woman. As he did, the trash on the ground started to look like it was made of light. Not beautiful, exactly, just significant. She has been stripped of the noise, he continued. There is nothing between her and the signal, no status to protect, no brand to maintain. She is wide open. But she's suffering, I said. I felt my eyes burn. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to give her my SUV. I wanted to give her the coffee from my center console. Anything to make it look right to my eyes. The suffering cracked the casing, Jesus said. He didn't sound sad. He sounded factual. Like a technician explaining why a machine had to be opened up to be fixed. Does everyone have to break? I asked. I thought of Chloe. I thought of her soccer cleats. I didn't want her casing to crack. I wanted her to be safe in the noise. Timing, Sarah, he said. Suddenly I saw the city again. Not the wireframes, but the timeline. I saw thousands of people. I saw them growing. I saw some lights dimming as they got richer. I saw others flaring up during a divorce or a death. Why don't we all see this? I asked. If people saw those figures behind them, if they could see the heat map, everything would stop. The whole economy would just stop. Exactly, he said. I felt a chill go through me. It wasn't cold. It was just a sudden realization of the scale. Some souls are in a holding pattern, he explained. If I gave them the full signal now, it would blow the fuse. They aren't ready for the voltage. So you hide it? I asked. I protect them, he corrected. I thought about my own life. I thought about the 46 years I'd spent looking at fonts and color palettes. I'd been in the holding pattern. I'd been sitting in the dark, thinking I was in the light. The accident, I whispered. That was my voltage increase? He didn't answer with words. He just let the hum get louder. I felt my body start to vibrate, not like a phone, like a bridge in a windstorm. I saw Marcus again. I saw the woman on the crate. I saw the 110 freeway. The figures were everywhere. They were the ones actually running the city. We were just the background actors in our own lives. We were the ones following the script they were writing in the margins. I'm not ready, I said. I felt my hands come up to cover my eyes. I didn't have hands, but the motion was there, the instinct to hide. You're already in the release, he said. The Skid Row scene began to bleed into the boardroom. The glass table was covered in the woman's plastic crates. Marcus was talking, but the woman was the one who was glowing. It was a mess. It was a visual nightmare. No hierarchy, no structure, just the raw, unfiltered weight of it all. How do I go back to meetings after this? I asked. I felt a laugh start in my gut. It was a hard, dry sound. You don't, he said. The hum shifted again. It became a high-frequency whine, like a jet engine. The light from the woman on the crate became so bright I couldn't see Jesus anymore. I couldn't see the boardroom. I was just a frequency. I tried to find a word for it, something to describe the way the gold light felt against the gray pavement of the street. I looked for the right term, something professional, something from a style guide. But the words wouldn't come. They were like old, dry leaves. They just fell apart before I could grab them. I reached for radiant. No, I reached for intense. No, there's a word for it. A specific word, the one that describes the thing that's left when the brand is gone. I can't find it. It's like it stayed back there, on the 52nd floor, or on the corner of 5th and San Pedro. I'm sitting here in this hospital room, and I'm looking at the white walls. They're so flat. They're so empty. I want to describe the woman's pulse. I want to tell you the color of the figures standing behind Marcus. But every time I try, the language just quits on me. It's like trying to draw a sun with a gray crayon. It's just light. That's all I have, light. It's happening again. I'm sitting here and the monitors, they're beeping. But that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the phone, not the one on the nightstand, the one in the wreckage. Back there in the light, I saw the signal. I was standing next to Jesus. I'm still calling him that. It's the only name that fits the frequency. And suddenly the heat map of Los Angeles it spiked. It was like a massive power surge in the middle of a grid. A ripple of blue light, sharp and jagged, cutting right through the gold of the city. It was vibrating so hard it made the air around us pull. Someone is breaking through, he said. I looked at the ripple. I could see the origin point. It was a soccer field in Glendale. I saw Chloe. She's standing by the bleachers. She has her phone in her hand. Her face, it's white. She's staring at the screen. She's calling me. Again and again. That's my daughter, I said. I tried to move toward the blue ripple. I wanted to grab it. I wanted to pull myself down that line like a cable. She's pushing the signal, Jesus said. I saw her lips moving. She wasn't just calling. She was praying. But it didn't look like prayer. It looked like she was trying to tear a hole in the sky. It was raw. It was violent. Can she see me? I asked. I felt a pressure in my chest, a tightening, like someone was winding a wire around my ribs. She sees the silence, he said. The silence is what's forcing the connection. I watched the blue ripple hit the figures, the ones standing in the traffic on the 110. They didn't move. They absorbed it. They took her fear and they turned it into more of that gold light. Why isn't anyone answering her? I shouted. I was angry. I'm angry now, just thinking about it. She's 16. She shouldn't have to scream into a void. The answer is in motion, he said. That's when I saw the other one. He wasn't like the messengers in the boardroom. He was massive. He looked like a pillar of white-hot kinetic energy, like the inside of a furnace. If you took all the electricity in Los Angeles and jammed it into one shape, it would be him. He was standing right over my SUV on Flower Street. Gabriel, Jesus said. The name didn't sound like a name. It sounded like a crash, like two tectonic plates hitting each other. I watched this figure, Gabriel, reach into the wreckage of my car. He wasn't pulling me out. He was holding the space open. He was keeping the physical world from collapsing in on my body. He's the security detail, I said. I don't know why I used that word. It just felt right. He was there to protect the asset, and I was the asset. He's the messenger of the transition, Jesus corrected. Gabriel looked up. He didn't have eyes. He had 2 points of focused intensity. He looked right at me, and I felt like I was being scanned, like a barcode. Is he the one who decides? I asked. I felt my knees give out. I was on the ground, or the light that felt like the ground. No, Jesus said. He carries the word. The word is the command. and the word for you hasn't finished its release yet." He moved his hand and suddenly the city was gone. We were in a space that looked like a massive greenhouse. But it wasn't plants. It was just potential. I saw rows and rows of these lights, all tucked inside gray shells. Some of them were starting to crack. Some were completely dark. "What is this?" I asked. "Market readiness," he said. I blinked. I looked at him. I thought I'd misheard. "I'm using your language, Sarah," he said. "You think in terms of launches. You think in terms of when a product is ready for the world. You think about the timing of the reveal." I looked at the shells. I saw one that was pulsing a deep, bruised purple. "That one," I pointed. "It looks like it's hurting." "It's not time for the release," he said. "If it opened now, it would fail. The environment isn't right. The soul hasn't built the structure to hold the light yet." "But it looks like it's dying," I said. I thought about my own life. I thought about the year I lost my dad, the year I almost lost the firm. I thought those were failures. I thought those were glitches in the plan. "It's a refinement," he said. "You don't launch a brand before the strategy is solid. Why would I launch a soul before it's ready to see the truth?" I looked at my own shell. It was there near the end of a row. It was wide open. It was shattered. "The Tesla," I whispered. "The Tesla was the launch," he said. I felt a coldness start in my stomach. "It's here now, in the hospital. I can feel it under the blankets." "You did that to me?" I asked. I backed away from him. The hum became a roar. It was deafening. "I allowed the timing to align," he said. "You were calling for the signal. For years, Sarah. You sat in those meetings and you asked, 'Is this all there is?' You were asking for the release." "I didn't mean like this," I said. "I'm crying. I can feel the salt on my lips." "You didn't know what you were asking for," he said. "But your soul knew. Your soul was tired of the noise. It was ready for the hum." I looked back at the blue ripple, Chloe's prayer. It was still there. It was weaker now. It was becoming a steady glow. "She's gonna be okay," he told me. "I don't believe you," I said. "I'm a creative director. I know how to spin a narrative. I know how to make a disaster look like a rebranding opportunity." "Look at her," he said. I looked. Chloe was sitting on the grass now. Her coach had his hand on her shoulder. But behind her, there was a figure. Small, steady. It was whispering something, not in her ear, in her heart. Chloe took a breath. Her shoulders dropped. "She's receiving the signal." I said. "She's learning the frequency of trust," Jesus said. The greenhouse began to fade. The rows of souls, the purple lights, the shattered shells, it all started to blur into a single blinding point. I felt a pull, a violent physical tug on my center. "Wait," I said. "I have more questions. The hierarchy, the boardroom, I don't understand how to function." "You won't function," he said. "You'll witness." "That's not a job," I argued. "I have a mortgage. I have a team of 12 people who depend on me for creative direction." "Your direction has changed," he said. The light was becoming too much. It was pressing in on my chest. I couldn't breathe. I saw Gabriel one last time. He was still standing over the car. He was looking at the paramedics. He was guiding their hands. He was showing them where to cut the metal. "The word is return," Gabriel said. The sound of it. It broke me. I'm in the bed. And my hand, it's doing this thing. I didn't notice it until an hour ago. My right hand is curled, like I'm holding something heavy and round. I try to flatten it out. I try to put it flat on the sheet, but as soon as I stop thinking about it, it curls back up. It's like my body is still trying to hold on to the shell. Or maybe it's trying to hold on to the blue ripple of Chloe's voice. The doctors think it's nerve damage. They think the impact on Flower Street did something to my motor cortex. They're talking about physical therapy. They're talking about recovery. But I know what it is. My hand is still waiting. It's waiting for the next signal. And I'm scared. I'm scared that if I let go, I'll lose the hum. I'll just be back in the noise. And I can't go back there. I can't. The heart stopped at 8:17 a.m. It started again at 8:38 a.m. That's 21 minutes. In my old life, 21 minutes was the length of a status meeting. It was the time it took to get from the office to the 110 interchange on a good day. It was a negligible block of time, a rounding error. But when the return command hit, those 21 minutes felt like they'd been stretched across a century. I felt the hum leave first. It was like a power cut. 1 second, the frequency was everywhere, the gold, the blue ripples, the pillars of kinetic energy. Then, Someone flipped a switch. The static came back. It was a gray, heavy noise. It tasted like metal. I was shoved back into a container that was too small and completely broken. I could feel the ribs. I could feel the punctured lung. I could feel the way the steering column had rearranged my interior. "She's back," a voice said. It was a flat, clinical voice. No resonance, no gold. I opened my eyes and I saw the ceiling of the trauma unit. It was a grid of fluorescent lights. One of them was flickering, just a tiny rhythmic pulse of dead light. I looked at it and I wanted to scream. Compared to the primary source, this room looked like a low-fidelity mock-up. It was grainy. It was poorly rendered. A doctor moved into my field of vision. Dr. Eris, I know his name now. He was wearing blue scrubs. He looked exhausted. I looked for his light. I looked for the messenger behind him, but the signal was gone. He was just a man with a clipboard and a look of pure confusion on his face. "Sarah, can you hear me?" I tried to nod. My neck felt like it was full of wet sand. "You've been out for a long time," he said. We were about to call it." He didn't say the word dead. Doctors don't like the branding of that word. It's too final. They prefer asystole. They prefer clinical cessation. I watched his lips move. I saw the way his skin looked under the bad lighting. He looked so fragile. Everyone in the room did. They looked like they were made of paper. "Chloe," I managed to say. The word was a rasp. It felt like I was swallowing glass. "She's outside," Eris said. "She's been there the whole time." I thought about the blue ripple. I thought about her sitting on the grass in Glendale. "The signal," I whispered. Eris leaned in. He checked my pupils with a penlight. The light was sharp. It was aggressive. It wasn't like the light from Gabriel. "She's a bit disoriented," Eris said to a nurse. "Check the intracranial pressure again." They think it's the brain. They think the hum was just a series of neurons misfiring as the oxygen levels dropped. They call it a hallucination, a hypoxic event. I'm a creative director. I've spent 20 years studying how people perceive reality. I know the difference between an image and a source. A hallucination is a projection. It's a layer added on top of the world. What I saw, it wasn't a projection. It was the removal of the filters. It was the world without the marketing. I'm home now. I live in a condo in Echo Park. I can see the downtown skyline from my balcony. I sit out there at 8:15 every morning, right when the sun hits the US Bank Tower. I look at the city and I try to see the heat map. I try to find the woman on the crate or the figure behind Marcus. Most days, I just see the smog and the traffic. I see the noise. But then I look at this picture. It's a white plastic pitcher. I took it from the hospital. I don't know why. I just grabbed it when they were wheeling me out. It's cheap. It has a little measurement scale on the side in milliliters. Every morning, I fill it with water. I watch the way the water hits the plastic. I watch the bubbles. And for a split second, the frequency shifts. The white plastic doesn't look solid anymore. It looks like a wireframe. I feel my right hand curl up. That spasm, the nerve damage, and I hear it. Just a faint vibration in the back of my skull, the hum. It's telling me that the release isn't over, that the return was just another phase of the rollout. I'm not the same asset I was before Flower Street. My branding is gone. My strategy is useless. I go to the grocery store. I go to the soccer games. I stand on the sidelines and I watch the other parents. I see them looking at their phones. I see the static around them. I want to tell them. I want to tell them that there's a pillar of energy standing 3 feet away from them, managing their flow. But I don't. I just stand there. I hold my plastic pitcher. I wait for the next signal. I don't check the clock anymore. I don't need to. I'm on a different schedule now. The timing, it belongs to the gardener. And the gardener is never late. I just have to sit here, in the static, and listen. Sarah's medical file notes the 21 minutes of asystole as a statistical anomaly. But there's one detail in the police report from Flower Street that doesn't quite line up with the physics of the crash. The first responder, a patrol officer named Miller, stated that when he reached the SUV, the heat from the Tesla's battery fire was so intense it was melting the asphalt. The driver's side door was fused shut by the impact. But Miller testified under oath that he didn't use the jaws of life to get to Sarah. He said the door was already open. He described it as being peeled back, as if the steel had been rolled like paper by something with more leverage than a hydraulic tool. He found Sarah on the pavement, 10 feet from the car, with no glass in her hair and no road rash on her skin. Miller never finished his statement for the official record. He took early retirement 3 months later. Sarah still has that white plastic pitcher. She keeps it on her nightstand in Echo Park. Everything else from that morning was lost. The latte, the SUV, the Q3 deliverables. But she keeps the pitcher. She says it's the only thing that feels heavy enough to keep her from floating back into the hum on Flower Street.